Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded, the podcast for the prepared with your hosts, Scott and Paris. Shane is on a family trip tonight for doing some family stuff, so we are excusing him today, but we have a very exciting interview today. We have an official, full-blown homesteader who's on the who's got a YouTube channel called Manti Homestead. We're going to introduce him here in a minute. And we're excited to have him on. He's going to share with us his greenhouse. He's going to share with us his rabbit hutch and his processing center for maybe, we'll see. We'll talk about a bunch of things. But before we do that, we want to make sure you get over to preppertalkradio.com and across the top, you'll see all of our resources. Download any free resources that you want there. Join our email list. Get in contact with us. Join our Facebook group at self-reliant, at Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance. And make sure you also hit up our good friends at Survival Frog, survivalfrog.com, and use code PrepperTalk. They have a myriad of different types of prepping tools and gear, and they have food storage, and they have all kinds of great gear. And if you use PrepperTalk10, you get 10% off anything on that site. So without any further ado, let's introduce you to Nate. And he is a Manti Homestead. It's on YouTube. If you look it up on YouTube, you can go to Manti Homestead, and he's got a channel over there. He's got several thousand subscribers. And so hit him up over there and follow him there. But we want to introduce him. He's got a fantastic homestead and greenhouse. And I think he blew up. Didn't you, Nate? Didn't you go viral on your rabbit processing videos? Didn't those go viral?
Yeah, so it's funny because I'm the guy with literally 100-foot greenhouse, and on Instagram it's been seen like 1.5 million times because we're growing off grid, passion fruit, lemons, citrus, and bananas. But really, it's some of my rabbit videos that are doing the best on my channel, and so I'm kind of excited that today we're not going to be in the greenhouse. Today we're going to go into our rabbit hutch, and I'll show you how we approach growing meat rabbits in our colony.
That's awesome. So for those of you who are not watching, if you go and watch, he actually panned his whole yard, and we saw how big is that greenhouse over there?
So it's 100 feet long, 17 feet wide, and it's a passive solar greenhouse. So it actually goes in the ground 30 inches, and we use those technologies to be able to heat it without fans. Not electricity, not propane, nothing. I mean, it's just Mother Nature. Last winter was like literally our coldest winter we've had in Manti, maybe on record. And many nights sub-zero, and without turning the heater on. The banana trees, the lemons, the limes, the passion fruit, dragon fruit—they're all alive and doing well.
Wow, that's amazing.
But awesome. I'm glad to show something else off. I'm just not the greenhouse guy. Apparently, I'm the rabbit guy sometimes.
Yeah. You're being a homestead isn't just being the one-hit wonder. Being a homestead is being able to take care of all the things that you need to be able to survive in anything that's coming. And so, you and I chatted earlier today about some of our thoughts and feelings about what's happening in the world. And so I think we have a lot of similar thoughts, feelings, and what's happening. So tell us a little bit about your
the whole rabbit process, because I'm seeing it looks like you only have one breed of rabbit in there. So tell us how big your hutch is, and then also tell us why you chose rabbits and what breed it is that you're using.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because so years ago we had started with these current rabbits that we have, New Zealand rabbits, and that's all that we knew. And so when we came to this, we had a 1-acre blank slate here on what is now our homestead. And so when we got into rabbits the second time, I actually did a lot more research on what rabbits I wanted to have. Now, New Zealand rabbits that you see back here, they're the really cute white ones with either cute or creepy pink eyes, depends on your preference. Most people get creeped out by them. New Zealand rabbit is like one of the most popular meat rabbit in the world. And a lot of that is that white fur is actually kind of desirable because if you're processing, if there's inadvertently a hair left over, you are not going to want to have a black hair, which is kind of funny. That's one of the reasons why that plays into why it's so popular. But these rabbits are actually sold heavily and distributed heavily in the California market, like high-end cruise ships and high-end restaurants.
Really?
And so, so, it's kind of like this faux pas, like, oh my God, you eat rabbits. And I'm like, yeah, a lot of rich people do too. That's how I make some money.
So you bought it not just for your own meat, but also for production and sale.
Yeah. So the main impulse for me is 100% because I am a prepper. I believe that being prepared is not just a fun little hobby. I think it's something that could very easily become absolutely essential. And so, as a protector and provider of my family, I love the idea of having backyard solutions to protein. So I have 9 kids and a beautiful wife, and completely intend to provide and protect them. And
That's
so the
awesome.
thing that I like about a backyard solution to meat rabbits. So a lot of people might be familiar with, backyard chickens, and backyard chickens are, they're fairly easy to take care of. And I will say, if you can take care of backyard chickens, you can definitely have a backyard colony of rabbits. And so what the chickens do obviously is provide eggs. Some people will do meat chickens as well. But throughout all of the egg issues that we're having, like right now, eggs are through the roof. And through this cycle and the last cycle, when eggs were so hard to get, my wife didn't even realize that there was a price and a supply issue. And so that's great. Okay,
Yeah.
now just cut and paste all of that over to the idea of backyard meat rabbits. So, I mean, if you're like me, you have a little bit of trust issue in, okay, the supply chain, government stupidity, whatever. And if something happens to where the supply of protein is affected, you can easily vamp up your backyard protein supply and be your own store. That's
So
what
do
I
you have
love
chickens?
about meat
Do you have
rabbits.
chickens too, or just only rabbits?
Oh yeah, we got chickens.
Oh,
Yep.
nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and those girls have been very nice. Even through the winter, we're getting, 7 eggs, and in the summer, it's more up to like 15 a day. But again, we have 9 kids, and
Sure.
so. But there's one other thought though I wanted to share on that question about why meat rabbits. So,
Yeah.
I grew up on a farm where we grew beef cows, and I love beef. That's my preference for sure. But in an emergency or a survival situation, if you had, like limited amount of land like I do, I don't have, like, we had 70 head of cows growing up, but here on my small homestead, I can't do that. I could probably have one or two, and we do have one or two cows, but they're both dairy cows. We have mini Jersey milk cows. And so for the protein needs, if in a survival situation I had a meat cow, I have 1,800 pounds of cow, and I go to kill it, I suddenly have 1,800 pounds of meat that needs to be processed and preserved.
Mm.
The thing I love about these little buggers is, pretty much, oh, I was going to grab one, but pretty much there's dinner,
Yep.
like
Yeah.
right there. You have 6 pounds, and just like that, I could literally process it and be in the house that very night and not need to preserve it.
So how many rabbits do you have?
So my colony ideally is 7 mothers. The
Okay.
last time that we processed about, oh crud, 20 to 30, I don't even know. And we left a few of the babies. So I got to clean it up a little bit, but I want to have 7 mothers, and then I've got 1 buck down here constantly with the colony breeding. And then as a backup, you see in the back cages, I actually have 2 extra spare bucks. That was a lesson I learned during the pandemic. We had 1 buck, and out of nowhere, he just died. And
Wow.
during the pandemic, all of a sudden, everybody was a prepper. And I was having a very hard time finding a replacement buck. And so that was a lesson learned. So I believe in that backup buck system. So we have 3 bucks. Normally, I'll always have 2, 1 in a cage and 1 down here with the ladies.
And how often do you rotate the bucks through the colony?
So we have like little stamps that we put in their ears, little tattoos. And so you can get really nerdy with that. And so you can kind of genetically trace, the lines and stuff. And so honestly, for us right now, I do a rotation when I want to keep both of them happy. And so, I'll go 9 months or so at a time and then just switch. It's just kind of whenever I want to. The main thing is that I have options.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And how many, so you have one buck, 7 mothers, and how often do they breed? How often does that produce litter for, are rabbits called litters? Like what's a rabbit, what are rabbit babies called?
Yeah. Well, I think you call them kits.
Yep.
A litter of kits. So, yeah, so they're like honestly in about 1 month, you can go on my YouTube channel and I do have a rabbit playlist. I've been very slacking in putting out a lot of videos there, but the one of the approaches to this colony is I've got insulated coolers. So I've got back here a little place where they go down in the ground and outside of the hutch in a corrugated pipe, and I've got coolers where they have their nest box on the outside. And so this is a long answer to your question, but in about a month, honestly, we'll probably have 25 plus babies. So
Okay.
we can breed year round. And in an emergency situation, I would actually probably put $3 up there and I'd probably be grabbing these girls and putting them in the cage and actually watching them breed and then putting it on the calendar. So it'd be a hybrid form of a much more controllable environment like the cage growers, but also a little bit more of the free range of the colony growers that I prefer. This is a little bit easier for me to manage. So in the colony system, you can have babies year round, and the insulated coolers will help that. But right now, because I'm not in a survival situation, I just kind of let it go naturally. And we have a massive baby boom in the spring. I mean, it's nuts. We'll have 2 or 3 waves through the summer of 30 plus babies, and it's chaos.
Wow. So
That's exciting though.
How many babies does each mother have?
So they're going to have anywhere from like 5 to 8 is kind of a normal, and sometimes a little bit more. Yeah, and honestly, it takes 30 days. So once they breed, 30 days, boom, 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 all these like ugly rat-looking little rabbits come out. And then within like 2 or 3 days, they've got furry little white hair and they're beautiful. And then about 6 months later, they are ready to slaughter.
Oh, wow. And then how much meat would that produce? Let's say how much, you have 9 kids, so that you're a little bit above average on terms of family size.
Just a little bit. Like 3 times,
about 2 or 3 times. Anyways, so what would you say, how long does one round of, you said you processed 20 to 30 rabbits the last time you did it. So about how long did that last you in terms of meat for your family?
Oh, I might have to answer it just a little bit differently than the question because I don't know completely. Like, so one of these rabbits, when we go to slaughter, it's about 6 pounds, 5 to 6 pounds is kind of optimal, and that's usually what I call them the meat trucks. When the people who want to come and grab the live rabbit and then distribute them to California and then they slaughter there, they usually like them around that 5 to 6 pounds. And it's kind of like anything with protein animals. When you take care of it, they've been fed the right food and they're the right weight, you get a better tasting end product. And so really 5 to 6 pounds. And so we could, even with a large family, you could make like rabbit stew, like chicken noodle soup, but with rabbit is our favorite. And so really one rabbit could do that. And so it's not like you're just, pounding down the protein, but you put it into a mixture and then you have a more well-rounded meal anyway.
Yeah. And how long does that last? How long does that stew last if you do that?
Well, for us, because it's so delicious, we'll knock that out in a day. If we're lucky, we have leftovers the next day.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So,
for sure.
and then back to an earlier question to tie in with this. So when we did the research the second time around, so that was about 4 years ago. We've had this current colony for about 4 years, I believe, maybe 5. We actually tried some other varieties of meat rabbits that had the higher ratings. We tried champagne rabbit. Now, I don't want to offend you champagne rabbit people, but I personally did not like that. That's like one of the other top meat rabbits. And to me, the champagne meat rabbit tasted a little bit more like a pork chop, where these New Zealand's taste, I mean, they taste like chicken. I know everything tastes like chicken, but these really do. Maybe I should say they taste like rattlesnake. They're delicious. They're anybody listening to this could try my meat rabbit and they would like it. If you like chicken, you would not be weirded out. There's no weird aftertaste. I'm not stretching it saying it's delicious protein.
Have you tried any of the other New Zealand rabbits? Because there's the New Zealand white, there's a New Zealand red, and I had one of those that we processed, and that was good. It was delicious. I quartered it, and 1/4 went into a mesquite rub. The other one went just straight as it was, and I split it into a bunch of different seasoning groups to kind of really get into it. I thought it was delicious, and my brother-in-law and I we had 7 rabbits, 2 bucks, and we didn't have any problems. With one of the things we learned was we hated having rabbits in a small space. We wanted a bigger setup like what you have, and that is way better than what we had. He's since moved and went with Flemish Giants, and I'm like, I haven't had any of it yet. So I'm curious to see what they taste like. But have you had any of the other New Zealanders? Do they taste different?
So we did raise a broken New Zealand. So you have like the brown rabbits, or sometimes they're the brown and the white mix, and so they have a broken hide.
Mm-hmm.
They're as far as I know, they're pretty much genetically the same animal.
Gotcha.
And there was no taste difference. We've just got decided to stick with white, because if I'm too busy to process, let's say I have 30 babies and we are very busy, then I will try to find a meat truck coming through Utah and sell them. And they like the white rabbit.
Okay.
It's just easier for me to just sell. So that's one of the reasons why. And I know that the meat quality, for when I do keep them here on the homestead and provide for my family, I just know what I'm getting. I like it. It's not broken, and I'm not even remotely interested to fix it, because it's what I want for sure.
Well, that's cool. The thing about rabbits that I love is it's so passive. It does not require a lot of labor to keep them going.
Yeah.
And with chickens, it required more hands-on all the time. Whereas with rabbits, it was like we had automatic feeders. We didn't have to really worry much about it. And it was just check on them once a day, a few minutes here and there. The only thing we ever had a problem with was we had a raccoon.
Oh, yeah.
But that's gone now. He was unalived effectively. But there's not a whole lot of problems that we had when we had rabbits. And everything you're saying is just like, I've wanted to get back into rabbits, but I'm moving. And so I'm like, okay, writing this down. I'm going to make sure I circle back with you when I'm ready to go. But I love the simplicity of it. And I love how much meat you can get out of just a few rabbits to start with.
Yeah. Well, and let me share another byproduct of that, because we have a 100-foot greenhouse, and I know a lot of people who are going to be doing meat rabbits are going to have grow beds and gardens. So down here, you literally have one of the best fertilizers and mulch pits that you can have. So rabbit waste or rabbit poo is so mild, you can pretty much put it directly on your plants in your gardens. And unlike poultry manure, it's not going to get hot. And so we're constantly taking out huge amounts of passion fruit vines from the greenhouse and then taking them in here. The rabbits love them. And then they're creating this rabbit compost, and then it goes directly back into the greenhouse. So it's a fantastic circle of life, if you will. And you feel good about it too, because I know I'm not putting chemicals in my greenhouse, and I'm also not feeding these guys some hybridized chemical, so it's you're getting a little bit back to Mother Nature, and it's definitely a whole lot more sustainable anyway.
That's awesome. How much so let's say I want to start doing rabbits, where do I go to buy rabbits like yours? Should I buy them from you? How much does it cost to build the hutch and run your colony? How much does it cost on a regular basis to run your colony and keep things moving?
So yeah, you would definitely just drive on down and see me, and I'd hook
Oh
you
yeah.
up.
At this
So
point, we're gonna be good friends from here on out. I'm hoping.
yeah, I have to pay for my friendship, so this is not new to me. So
Yeah, good.
so I mean the price of a really good breeding line, I mean you might be like $20 a rabbit for like a really good mother and a really good buck, you know? And so
Mhm.
sometimes you can find some really good deals, and other times it's even more money for like these really disciplined breeders, especially like the cage breeders. They're going to have a lot more genetic purity, a lot more documentation. They're going to be papered, you know? So anyway, that would be like an initial startup. And then, you know, as you look at this pen that I'm in, this is literally my old hog run. And
Mhm.
so when I built it, because I wanted a colony, we tried it with them just making their own burrows into the ground. And what I found is that I needed to bring a little bit more control. So I'm not a control freak needing the cages. You know, I wanted them to run free, but when they were doing their own burrows, a lot of times they were, because of the rabbits I was trying to have in here, they're collapsing their burrows. So I did run some wire underneath my whole colony. I just grabbed some, you know, decent gauge, not chicken wire, but just that the other that has like the
Hardware
square
cloth.
panels. Yeah. And put it down underneath. So that way they can't burrow here. But then I've created different places where natural nest box, like you see one that this rabbit's on over here. So little boxes above ground that they can burrow into. And then, like I say, my insulated coolers. That's one on YouTube you'd want to go look at on my rabbit playlist, because I show you how I've approached a natural place for them to burrow down into, going through a corrugated pipe. And that's, you can go get scraps of that for pretty dang cheap. And then just a regular $6 Walmart cooler. Sometimes they used to be 6, now they're probably 10 to 15, right? But
Yeah.
but I created just a little nesting box. So that's a little bit different approach. Not too many people do that. Um, but I like it a lot because I can then check on my babies outside of the hutch that I've created. So the cost, to answer that question, just depends a little bit on what you're talking about. If you've got an existing structure, this one was a pig run. It was modified. I put some wire. I did put wire above it. Just I didn't want raccoons. I didn't want anybody coming in and stealing these little babies. Um, so it just depends on how much you go, but you can really get by with a fairly economical setup.
And then on a monthly basis, how much is the feed? Like, I know you said you rotate the feed from your greenhouse, so there's probably not a lot of cost for their food. But what do you say? What would you say is the regular monthly? Are there any regular monthly costs for you?
So, oh, it's a good question. And even though I do this circle of life, I don't want to oversell that because we're like pretty busy. Like the greenhouse has a ton of waste, but my wife right now is also nerding out on compost. That is the big 2025 goal. And so we are, a lot of the rabbit stuff and the greenhouse excess is going to the compost pit. So I am buying rabbit feed.
Gotcha.
And so I wish I had a very detailed answer as far as how much rabbit feed, but my approach to it, I consider this part of sustainability and peace of mind. And I just spend the money. So when I buy rabbit feed, I buy it in bulk, and I store feed for my livestock and for my rabbits. So it's
Awesome.
like food store. I have food storage for my food storage, if you will,
Smart.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but because of that, I'm definitely loose on the numbers, and I'm okay with that because I'm off doing my real estate and my
Yeah,
my
just a round number, like just to give us an idea of what it costs to run that. That's $100 a month, maybe 50, $200 a month. What do you less than that?
um so like per rabbit you're probably, oh god, I just don't have a good answer.
Yeah, don't worry about it then. I just thought it
Yeah.
would be cool, too cool to know, like, hey, how much does this really cost? And if you probably don't need to buy steaks and meat at the grocery store anymore because you have it here, so it kind of washes itself out, or it should. That's the whole idea of being sustainable, is that you're doing things that are going to replace what you would have done at the grocery store. You're doing it on your own property so that you're saving that money or putting that money back into that sustainability. So I love it. I think that I definitely want to at some point get you're getting the I'm getting the rabbit bug.
What's got to interject? So for those listening, they know this. Paris is the money guy. He's a spreadsheet maestro.
Yes,
like he's got a nickel and dime down. Like, okay, I saved 3 cents this year. That's a win. And it's like, yeah, you did, but you also produced 80 pounds of meat in the last quarter for your family. Like, add that in. And so that's where he's going with that. And I appreciate that. But the reality is you've got your meat production, you've got chickens, you've got your greenhouse, you've got production of everything. Every dollar you're saving that you're not having to buy stuff to support that just exponentially increases your yield, right? Because you're cycling everything through. That's the goal we want, right? Less expense, more reward, more ROI. And that's why I love rabbits. I'm so glad that we have you on, because I really want to get more into that when I get relocated. But like, you've got an ideal situation where you've got the space, it's laid out, it's secure. I'm assuming your feed's not far from where it is, so you don't have to haul it very far. And your greenhouse, we saw in the video, is really close. You're not hauling that very far. So you can pretty much just wheelbarrow everything around the homestead. You said you're about an acre?
Yeah, so let me kind of piggyback on that real quick.
Sure.
So I have a lot of kids, and I know in 2025, every kid is entitled to a cell phone without any work or anything involved in it, right? It's a human right for them to have a cell phone. Actually, at the homestead, that is like not true. My kids are not guaranteed a cell phone. It's not something that they are owed in life. And so right now, I have my 16-year-old son. We call him Jelly. And he has literally ran this colony for a year and a half. That's how he earns his cell phone.
There you go.
He wakes up every morning. It takes him literally about 7 minutes, maybe less, to come out and take care of him. He's always running because he wakes up like 20 minutes before he goes to school. He comes out and just water, gives them their feed, and then he's off. And so you can really make it efficient. And the other cool thing about that too is that in an emergency situation, if you get your colony and everything set up early, so you can learn ways that you can be more efficient. So imagine Paris in some future era, a year from now, and that kind of discipline. So I know what I could do to be more disciplined, but I am chaos. I'm in a whirlwind. I've got this crazy greenhouse. I just remodeled 2 houses last year, got a W-2 job. I'm coaching 9 kids, blah. You know what I mean? I am a whirlwind, but I'm very productive with that. But efficiencies you can build in. So we're really good friends with the Provident Preppers, and they just barely built.
Oh, yeah.
They just barely built a rabbit hutch, and they've come and done some rabbit videos over here, and they took some of our ideas and built them a hutch as well. And the thing I like about them is they're more of that Paris mindset, where they're a little bit more analytical and they're approaching it from efficiency bases. And so there's just strength as we get into a community of preppers. We honestly can help each other, because I would need somebody like Mr. Paris to push the efficiency in a time of need.
Yeah,
but yet other people might ask me, because I've got a lot of knowledge of really things that you shouldn't do. I've made all the mistakes, and a really strong point is that if you think we might be headed in a way to where these things become necessary, the more you can do right now while the sun is shining, the better. Get your colony set up and make some mistakes, make some successes, make connections with people who have ideas in efficiency if you're more of a chaos motif. So all of these things will help you in that future event.
What are some of the biggest mistakes that you ran into that you think people could avoid?
So one for the colony was a little bit too loose on letting them burrow. It became chaos. The other thing is I'm always a bigger, better, faster, more. And like this colony was even bigger than it is now initially. And because of that, we had dueling bucks in there, and we had unhappy moms because of the crowded nature, and we were starting to lose a lot of the babies. And so being cognizant of like your space ratios is important. My wife would come out, she's like, Nate, we need more harmony. And I'm like, we need more. And she was right, because we were losing the efficiency of some of these litters that were the moms, if they're not happy, will literally stomp out those babies. So you do need to listen to the woman in your life and create harmony inside of here. So that was one. And then the other one.
And you said bucks will fight each other. Is that what you said earlier?
Yeah. You don't want like having a couple of bucks down here. What we've noticed in them, basically proving to be the bigger man, they create that tension. And if you've got 7 different moms at a time having babies, you want to make sure they have, quiet places, their own, plenty of places for their nest. We have different places that they can nest, like above ground, below ground, whatever. And you just don't want to have that chaos, so that they will give you production.
Now, one of the things we ran into, like I mentioned, we had the problem with the raccoon, took a few, but we had learned from mistakes. We had some angry mamas, and they stomped out some of the babies because the space was too small. Because we also had chickens in the same coop. Big mistake. Yeah. The other thing is we actually, with our bucks, we had just a board. We put a board between the cages. We had the cages of their cages up on the wall. And at first we didn't have a board between them. And we learned that that's not a good idea. Like, we had to keep them more visually separated, because they would get angry and flex on each other all day. Even though they couldn't get to each other, they're very stressed all the time. What do you do? Anything special to keep them separate? Do you have to deal with that? Because I mean, we had different breeds. I don't even remember everything we had. I know we had the red New Zealander. We had some others that were gifted from some friends, and then we got one that I had to process immediately, that we got as a gift from a friend. It was their pet rabbit. And she's like, I want some of that this week. Can you process it first? And I'm like, oh, okay, sure. And that was an interesting learning curve to process. And we can talk about that for a minute too. But like, was there anything you had to do, like, or that you're doing special for separation for the bucks, besides just putting them in a cage up on the wall? Or are they chill enough that you don't have to divide them, or what's?
Yeah. So we've got metal cages, and we have 2 spare bucks right next to each other with just a metal wire in between, and it's been fine.
Oh,
and
cool.
Then we have the 1 buck that's currently just here year round. And so when those moms want to naturally, they're going to know when it warms up, and they're just going to start breeding. So yeah, we don't let them roam where they can touch each other down here in the colony, because they'll fight. And a lot of times they'll go and they'll literally castrate each other. And then you'll wonder, like, why are we having no babies? Well, both of your bucks could potentially get damaged. And so which does you no good. You're feeding an old rabbit that is not good for you, So we haven't had too many issues, because we've learned to just manage that and try to create that happy environment.
Gotcha.
Is there a point where it doesn't make sense to process the rabbit because they're too old?
So I don't know, because we haven't gone too late on ours. We just know when we want to. And honestly, some of these mothers, when it's time to rotate them, like we just find a way to sell them, or find a way to get rid of them. And we just don't eat them. I don't know why. They're not pets. It's not a sentimental thing. I personally don't want to have my family have a bad experience with this whole rabbit experiment, because like right now I've got 9 very different, very opinionated kids, 5 girls, 4 boys, and they all like rabbit. There's no weirdness, and I've got dancers, and I've got ball players, I've got princesses, and all of them like rabbit. So for me, the old ones, I just get rid of a different way.
Smart.
You sell them and whatever.
Yep.
Now, does your family join you in the processing? I know you mentioned your 16-year-old kid is the one that kind of takes care of him, your boy. Does the family jump in and process? Do they all get to learn and see how it works and see where the food comes from that's on their plate?
Oh yeah, I've got videos that you would just die. They'll have to be shared off air, but it's such maybe a contradiction to a lot of people that are sensitive to that. Oh my word, you eat rabbit. And I'm like, hey, when's the last time you had a chicken sandwich? Because my daughter, my little girl, like they said, hey, this is the chicken that our neighbor gave us that we were eating. We're having chicken soup. And she's like, oh, they eat chickens? And yet she eats rabbit, like no big deal, which is kind of funny. But no, when it comes to the processing, I don't know why I shared that little thought in the middle of this, but when it comes to the processing, oh yeah, I was going back to the sensibility, like the fact that the last time we did it, I had my 12-year-old boy who was actually doing the dispatch, who was actually, killing the rabbit. And then I had the one 16-year-old that was doing the cutting. And then I had my boy right before he went on his mission, my 18-year-old doing a second stand of cutting. So processing, skinning it out and putting it in the clean galvanized bowl, metal bowl to go to mama.
Gotcha.
And so in the process of that, the one thing I know noticed from my 12-year-old, like it was hard. He's got a sensitive heart. I actually am very kind-hearted as well. And I'm telling you, it might not seem like it, but there is something humbling that comes to producing your own animal. And it is a wonderful effect on your kids. By doing that, I think that my kids are actually prone to be less violent and less aloof to what it truly takes to have food on the table. And I personally believe, like, the injunction right off the bat in the Bible is by the sweat of your brow. Anytime you have to produce something, rather it's the law of the harvest or if it's you're creating your own protein, and it goes to the inevitability that animal then has to be put under and then turned into something that's going to be useful for food, that has a great effect. So we get the whole family involved. We had the 12-year-old that was dispatching him, the 16, the 18-year-old processing, skinning him out. They'd put him into a metal bowl. And then literally it was going into the house. I got videos of all of this into the house to my wife and then my 17-year-old daughter. And by the time they get him, it just looks like a piece, like a whole chicken from Walmart.
Yeah.
It's a white protein, and then they would go through and do the processing at that point. And so, yeah, it's all hands on deck because usually I'm like, we got to get this done because I have other projects I want to do.
That's
awesome.
cool.
Well, I'll test. Like when I processed my first rabbit, it was a moving experience.
Sure.
Because of the wash of gratitude that came over me.
Yep. And humility.
That one hit harder than all the others. I mean, that was my first time processing a rabbit I raised. Then we processed some chickens after, and that also was moving. But it's interesting because it's like, yes, you do have a greater sense of appreciation. There is a humbling component to it. And you realize the value of life because that life lived to feed us. And so you want to make sure we take care of things better. So that I love that you're doing that with your kids. My kids are just getting to the age where I can start doing that next year, hopefully. But that is awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us.
And us parents have a lot of leverage because I've got a lot of kids that want a lot of electronics, their cell phones or money for their games or whatever event that they're doing. And reining them in and doing the chores on the homestead on a regular basis and on a harvest basis like it is when we process and harvest the rabbits. It's not easy, but it's so good for your kids.
I love that. Awesome. Do you take the meat and turn it into jerky and store it for months later? Do you do a bunch of different types of things with the meat, or do you just do stews, or what do you usually do?
Yeah, so our favorite thing to do, we have cubed them up, chunked them up, and then fried them, and then freeze dried quite a bit. But our favorite thing to do is because we like them like in cubes, fry them up in some oil, and then like make, pasta with it. Like, so, chicken Alfredo, but it's rabbit Alfredo. It's kind of like one of our favorites, but honestly, my kids will just go and just sit there and eat them. If you sear them the right way, just simple salt and pepper,
Yep.
I'm like, I could eat that till the end of time. And so it's kind of an easier approach, but we just cut off the big chunks of meat, cube them up. Sometimes we'll cook and then freeze, or other times we'll just put them in the freezer and then cook later. And then the bone, the carcass bone, we actually have been freezing that as well, because when we want to make our favorite, which is chicken noodle soup, substituting rabbit, we throw that whole carcass in and just and then boil it through the day, so you get the benefits just like you would from from chicken. And then so we do that a lot. That's our go-to that we really like.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you so much. This has been really fun, and I definitely, for sure, I know you and Paris have talked before the show, but definitely want to have you back and learn more about your homestead, learn also about we'll get into your greenhouse next time, because I have questions about figs, and I know you know figs.
Well, a little closing thought. I know we're coming at the end here. We've talked about rabbits, and we mentioned the greenhouse, whatever, but I think anything that we're talking about here, the principles are the same. Wanting to be self-sufficient is a desirable thing, and then doing something about it, slowly dipping into, rather it's rabbits or your grow beds or your garden or a greenhouse or food storage or freeze drying. All of these things are kind of interchangeable. We all can help each other. We should help each other, and we should be getting about preparations and providing security, which will lessen our anxiety even when things in the world are going in a scary and uncertain manner.
Yeah. In fact, on our next episode, we're going to be talking about some of the threats that are going on. And I know Nate and I, you and I shared a couple thoughts about different threats that are, facing our nation, and have been facing our nation over the several years, and what even the scriptures talk about is coming to us. And so we just really appreciate it. Again, we will definitely have you on again, and we'll talk about various parts of your homestead, if you're okay with that. And we will. So once again, I know you just told me earlier today you started an Instagram as well. So
yeah,
where can we find you? Where can we follow you and find you and help support you?
So Manti Homestead on Instagram, Manti Homestead on TikTok, and Manti Homestead on YouTube. YouTube's kind of my main outlet at the moment, and Instagram. I'm pretty regular on both. Oh, I'm also on X, but I have 0 followers on X. Not even my mom.
So just for everybody, Manti is M as in Mary, A-N as in Nancy, T as in Tom, I, Manti, and then Homestead. It's all one word, no dots or dashes. You go look him up on YouTube and Instagram and other ways. Give him a follow, and let's support his endeavors and learn from him and learn from each other. Nate, thank you so much for being on the show, and we would love to have you on again. We hope this was valuable for you to be able to share your expertise. You've been listening to Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded, and we're here to bring you all that we can about being prepared and being ready for what's happening in the world, and more importantly, what's just going to happen perhaps in your life. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.